Taylor Elwood here, and today I'm doing a solo episode where I'm going to be talking about tower time and specifically practical magic you can do during tower moments. This is something that I've gone through enough tower times now that I've had to do some magic in the moments, and I want to talk about really like when to do magic and when not to do magic during tower moments because I think this is really important. It's a topic that we cover in the book, which is coming out next week. And do you want to send a reminder to all or mention a brief reminder for any of you who are watching live or in the next couple days that we're still doing a pre-order special that if you order the book direct from us as opposed to somewhere else, you get a free bonus class as a way of saying thank you for supporting authors directly because as indie authors, that is something that really is exciting to do. We're publishing it on our own. Welcome, Jack. Welcome, Noctua. Glad to have you both here. And if you have any comments or questions as I'm going through and sharing things, feel free to drop those into the chat. I'm always happy to answer them and would love to receive any comments you have. So when I think about, let's think about a tower moment here for a moment. And what is a tower moment? When we think about the tower card itself, the tower card is a card where, essentially you have everything kind of coming apart. You've hit this moment of crisis where everything has occurred and it's like, you know, your world is falling apart. The imagery of the tower card is a great example of that. In fact, I'm just going to bounce over real quick and go get a tower card. I should have thought of that, but I was in the moment, I was just getting ready this morning and it was a slow morning, so I'm going to give myself that. But I'm going to pull out a tower card here because this is a great example of like when we think about the tower. Here we go. You think about the tower, I mean, this is perfect. So here's the tower from the Tower of the Cat People. It's one of my favorite tarot decks. And you can see like the tower is basically coming apart. Like the neck is blowing open. It's getting ready to fall. We see the three people falling down. Well, two people and a cat. The cat, of course, is going to land on its feet. So here you go. Hopefully you can see now, Sheena. And hey, Sheena, happy to have you here. Sheena is my amazing, lovely co-author for the book. She wasn't able to be here live with me today, like in like doing a video interview, but we're gonna be doing more of those as well. Welcome, Heather. Glad to have you here. So when I look at the tower, like this is what I think of. Like, okay, everything is falling apart, and so there comes this kind of thing. Like, well, what do we do about that? The tower's coming apart. We're facing a personal emergency, and emergencies in our lives can be a number of things. It could be the death of a loved one. It could be the loss of a job. It could be a breakup or a divorce. It could be hitting a deer. Like that was one of my tower moments last summer was hitting a deer with my car in the middle of like 7 hours away from my home. It could be all of those different things. And think about that. Like a tower moment, it doesn't have to mean that you've lost everything, but in the moment, it is a catastrophic moment. It is a catastrophic experience. And it brings a certain level of clarity and focus with it as well. There's a certain level of challenge to it that it's like, hey, here's a signal. Things in your life are getting upended. What are you going to do about it? Now, I'm sure we've all experienced tower moments. And if any of you feel so inclined, feel free to drop those in here. Um, I'd love to read a couple of examples of tower moments that you've had and what the clarification was for you. I'll tell you, for me, like the clarification last summer with the tower moment that I had when my car hit the deer, the clarification was really around surrender. So I had to surrender myself in the moment because I didn't have a lot of control over the situation. Here I was, I'm driving home in rural Washington. My car hits a deer. I did everything that I could do in any given moment, and there were some moments where I couldn't do a lot of things at all, and it felt scary. And this kind of brings me to, well, then, like, what do we do when we're experiencing a tower moment in our lives? Like, what's the magic that we turn to, and when do we turn to that magic? And what kind of magic do we turn to? Now, these are some of the topics that we explore in the book, but I'm going to share a couple of thoughts right now because I think it's really relevant, and I hope that it helps you as you think about your own tower moments and like what you might do or not do. And I'm going to share a couple of examples from my life. I'm going to use the deer example, and then I'm going to use an example from my life, like right after I got my second divorce. And the reason I'm using these two moments is they're two very different moments, and yet in a very real sense, they're very similar. They were moments where in my life things fell apart. In the case of the car hitting the deer, it wasn't like my entire life fell apart. I wasn't losing, I didn't, it affected one very specific moment. So it was a very specific tower moment around a very specific experience. Whereas in the case of the divorce, it was a tower moment that affected every area of my life. And my point in sharing that is that we can have different types of tower moments in our lives. A tower falling doesn't have to mean that your entire life is getting shaken apart. A tower moment could be you're having this one catastrophic experience, but the rest of your life is just fine. Like when my car got hit by the deer, it wasn't like I was going to lose my home. My two cats were taken care of. I still had everything in my life that mattered to me was still fine. The big thing was that I didn't really have the resources in the moment that I needed. I was in rural Washington, 7 hours away from my home, 3 hours away from Sheena and across the border. So it wasn't like Sheena could easily come down, especially with the ongoing geopolitical tensions between Canada and America at the time that are still there. Um, it was kind of one of those cases where it's like, okay, here I am. What am I going to do? I see Sheena actually wrote, losing Spirit, my familiar, and our beloved dog last Christmas. It does have me noticing and questioning everything. What habits were shaped the flow of our lives? I noticed I haven't been in the garden. I lost some of my nature home magic because it was always with her. Yeah, I mean, losing a pet and really a family member, because Spirit was the family member. I mean, that's our pets are our family members, right? They bring a certain level of magic and experience. I felt the same way when my kitty Onyx died. If any of the rest of you want to share examples or again questions, feel free. Joe, welcome. Glad to have you here. So, getting back to my story, what was the magic I could do in the moment? Well, first of all, I had to look at the practical actions that I could do in the moment. When my car hit the deer, the first thing I did is I pulled over to the side of the road and I checked the damage, and it was very clear that the car was basically not going to run. The other thing that I did is I pulled out my phone and I called AAA and I called my insurance company. Those were the actions I could do. I also let Sheena know what was going on because, even though she couldn't necessarily come down, that didn't mean she couldn't do anything. It just meant that in the moment, here were the things that I could do. And here's the point I want to mention about mundane actions. Mundane actions are the soil that actually feeds our magical actions. What do I mean by that? I think a lot of times people have a very unrealistic idea that they have to keep their magic separate from their mundane actions. But the reality is, your magic is nourished by how you set up your life overall. And this is true even in a tower moment. So it's really important to recognize and understand that, okay, here's this experience that I'm having where things are falling apart. What are the mundane actions I can take is one of the most important steps that you can possibly take. And you might not have a lot of options, but chances are you at least have a few options. I knew the options I had. And somebody came along, they towed my truck or my car over to a safer area. They helped me out a little bit. And that was good because it was a really hot summer day. They got me to a place where there was some shade. And then lo and behold, some people came, they got the car, and they towed me down to Davenport, Washington. Now, Davenport, Washington is a little town in the sticks that doesn't have a lot to it. It's literally like you can literally be in and out of that town within 5 minutes. I'm not kidding you. So I see I had another person join us. Welcome, Keeve. Glad to have you here. But nonetheless, there I was. And I came there during like one of their busy moments of the year. They had a rodeo there or like a country fair or something like that. I think it was a rodeo. Not they had like one hotel in town. All the rooms were taken. Like I was like, "Oh no, what am I going to do?" Because this was on a Saturday. None of the mechanics in town were open, and as it would turn out, nobody could have helped that car anyway. It was basically totaled. So here's my tower moment, right? Like I'm in the middle of nowhere. I have nowhere to go. Well, lo and behold, Sheena helps me out and we and finds a place that I can stay, pays for it, which I'm so grateful for her and our other partner for doing that because they were like looking out for me in the moment. Like it was just like, thank you so much. So I had a place to stay. So things started to firm up a little bit, but I'm still in this tower moment because I'm faced with like, how am I going to get this car to someplace where someone can look at it? What am I going to do to get back home? I called the insurance company. They're like, "Yeah, you need to get to Spokane." Well, Spokane's like an hour or so away, but there's no way for me to get there. Not easily. There's like a bus that goes there on Monday through Friday, and so I was basically going to be in that little town, and the original place I'd taken the car to, nobody was going to be able to look at it. So, what magic was I going to do about this situation? Well, let me tell you something. The magic that I did in the moment was I surrendered. I was feeling a lot of despair, a lot of upset. It felt like everything was falling apart. So, what I did is I meditated. I went into meditation and I allowed myself to go on a journey where I felt all of the things that I was feeling. And I allowed that despair and everything else to just come wash through me. And I cleared it out. And because I was able to clear it out, I ended up being able to make some very specific choices that ultimately got me to Spokane, got the car to a place where they could look at it and then that it could be taken care of, and allowed me to get to the rental car and drive home. It took a couple days, but that's how I came out of that tower moment. And the magic of the moment was surrendering. It was just doing a meditation to surrender to the moment. And that's one example of where sometimes that's what you need to do in a tower moment. It's just surrendering to the moment and finding the ways that you can do that. Once I surrendered to the moment, that's when things started to change. The energy of the situation moved. And it took a day or so. And it took me just really being willing to go to a place of like complete and utter exhaustion in a way. Like I had to go to that place to let things go. And sometimes that's the magic in the tower moment. But it's not the only magic. And that's why I wanted to share another example of a different situation. And really, realistically, in our book, which, as I said, is coming out on Tuesday, we talk about a number of these different scenarios. Now, I'm going to post the direct links in here. Like I said, if you pre order today, Sunday, or Monday, you do get a chance to get a free class from us. It's our way of saying thank you for supporting us directly as opposed to just going to a retailer. When indie authors get books ordered from them directly, it's a bit more money in their pocket to continue writing those other books and things like that, which always helps. Plus, honestly, I love autographing books for people. So I've just posted the two links in the chat here. They'll also be in the show notes if you're interested. Check it out. This pre order special is only going until, well, basically Monday night at midnight, and then like Cinderella with the glass slipper, it'll just disappear. Poof. You're no longer a pumpkin. Okay. If any of you have any questions, also again, feel free to drop those in. Uh, Anything along those lines, please do. Would love to see what your thoughts are. So, the next example of a tower moment that I'm going to share and the magic I did around that was in the wake of getting a divorce. I got a divorce a few years ago, well, more than a few years ago at this point. And in that divorce, one of the things that came out of it was, oh, Sheena has something to say. She said, we also have embodiment and somatic integration weaved throughout the book and in the specific magical practices because that is the most powerful, mundane, magical actions we can do in the moment. Yeah, well, that goes back to the, as an example, the meditation I was talking about, because that was basically working that energy through physically. And yeah, she's exactly right. We incorporated that in. She really brought that specialty in. I mean, I have some experience with it. She has a bit more, and she really knows her stuff around that, and it shows up in the book really well. It's a really good contribution. Okay, getting back to the story at hand and the tower magic that I wove in my second example, and I appreciate y'all being here and listening to me pontificate about tower moments and magic. Um, in the wake of my divorce, like I moved out and I basically had 10 boxes to my name. I had my car. I had savings and my inheritance, but like that was like liquid resources. It wasn't anything I could do anything with it at the time necessarily. And I moved into the home of a friend. That friend had a spare bedroom, and I was very grateful to have that place to live. It was where I needed to be, and yet in a very real sense, that place was a bit of an abyss in some ways. She had a couple of, well, she had more than a couple of cats, but she had a couple of cats that were basically in their final days. And so there was cat pee on the floor every day. I don't know about you, but in a situation where you're living in a house where you can smell cat pee every day, it's kind of like that. That moment was like, man, I've really hit my low. Like I have lost pretty much everything. I didn't have a job at the time because it was in the pandemic, and I had actually just reached a place where I'd been successful enough with my writing that I'd been able to kind of leave the job I'd been at before. And so it was like, okay, cool. But then I'm like, but now I've got to take care of certain things, and I don't have the same financial support that I had because I was no longer with somebody else. And part of that success was honestly having someone else in the picture to help out with certain things. So it was like, oh my gosh, like this is, I've got to figure some stuff out. And in the immediate moment, I didn't do any magic. I wisely made the decision that I was not going to do any magic in like the first couple of months. Not for myself anyway. I was willing to do magic for other people, but I wasn't going to do it for anyone else. And the reason why was because I recognized that if I did magic in the short-term moment, it wasn't going to be very focused. I was dealing with grief around the divorce ending. I was also dealing with the upset of having to figure out like the next steps in my life. I had a place to stay. I had short-term means to take care of any bills that I had. I just needed to start getting myself, you know, picking myself up. And the first thing I ended up doing, fortunately, was I got into DoorDash. So I was a Door Dasher for a while. I basically would get up in the morning and drive for about 10 to 12 hours a day, dropping off food. And it was good for me at the time. It was exactly what I needed. I needed something that allowed me to just be in my grief, do a little bit of socializing with people because in the pandemic, right? Like we're all isolated. We're not talking. I had kind of lost some of those social skills. So, you know, here I am. I'm picking up food for people. I get to talk to other people who are on the front line. I got to deliver that food. I didn't really talk to the people I delivered the food to, but it was just kind of one of those cases where it gave me a way to do something that kind of helped me to start re-socializing out there in the world. And it gave me time to think. I was in that car all day long, so I was thinking a lot like, what are my next steps? What do I want to do in my life? I know I don't want to do this, It also gave me time to grieve. Sometimes in the moment, a short term solution can be really good, especially if you treat it as a short term solution. I knew I wasn't going to do DoorDash forever, but I knew I needed to do something at the time. But after a month or two, once I'd kind of gotten some clarity in my life, what I ended up doing is I started working some magic. And part of it was the first step was I need to find a new place to live. So I ended up doing some Saturn magic. And I was originally looking at moving in with another friend up in Portland. She'd recently moved to Portland. She wanted to find a place to live. She wanted it to be a magical household. I thought that was pretty cool. But something wasn't quite connecting there for us. And in retrospect, I think that part of it was like she was kind of the necessary inspiration to get me to kind of start doing something, but at the same time, like it wasn't the right fit. I I did this Saturn magic ritual to find a place to live. And what ended up happening is in this ritual, I kind of had the curtains pulled back and I was shown like here's some different possibilities for life. And one of the main points that like Saturn was saying was like, look, you have specific boundaries in your life. You have certain parameters that you're operating in. Here are the parameters that you're operating in, and here are all the possibilities contained within those parameters. And we don't normally think of Saturn in that way. Like some people treat Saturn as a malefic outer planet. Some people think of Saturn as like Saturn is, is the boundary or is really about setting boundaries. And he is, but he's also about limitation. And Saturn is the scythe because Saturn cuts away things. There's a lot of different interpretations. And Saturn, in my opinion, is an excellent tower time spirit to work with in the moment. And before I continue, if any of you have questions, feel free to drop those in, any comments, anything along those lines around tower moments and like what to do, practical magic to do in the moment, anything like that. I'm sharing examples, but if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in. So in the moment of this, I see suddenly that I have these different places that I can go. And so like I literally spent like a month and a half exploring all kinds of possibilities. I looked at working at the United States Postal Service. I looked at working at an Amazon factory. I looked at going back to work as a customer support agent. That one I left fairly shortly thereafter. I was like, I'm not in the space to do this right now. Like I can't care enough about other people. And with that kind of job, you have to kind of care about people, at least enough in the moment, because you're dealing with their unhappiness about software or whatever else. So what did I do? I I kind of looked at all these possibilities. I looked at moving to Astoria, Oregon. I almost ended up living by the ocean. But I was just looking at all of these different options and possibilities. And then I collapsed everything back in. I stopped the magical working. I'm like, okay, I've seen the possibilities and I need to think about this for a bit. I see someone commented, so I'm going to read that and then I'll come back. Heather, thank you for commenting. She said, in 2018, I was left unemployed by worsening chronic illness. I was fighting two insurance companies, barely able to function. My elderly parents were supporting my family, and I was having nightly panics with my whole body feeling electrified. Oh, first of all, just my heart goes out to you, Heather. I finally stopped this nightly cycle by refusing to live in the thought cycles anymore. I gradually improved. In 2019, I had a unity experience that changed my outlook. In 2020, the legal fights were over. In 2021, with the increased availability of remote work, I was able to work again. It was a long haul, but I came out the other side. Coming through that period has provided an important reflection point when new challenges have arisen in the years since. Yes, yes, yes. Heather, I totally get that. I think I think sometimes when we think of tower moments, we think of them as happening at like a flash in the pan, but sometimes tower moments can be extended. I mean, if I look back at my life from 2017 on to really 2024, that was just one long series of tower moments. 2017, I ended up having to close my business down and go back to work. And then I started to kind of get some things put together. And then my dad died right at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And yeah, it just kind of extended from there. So I get that. And thank you, first of all, for sharing that experience because, you know, I really appreciate that. It is, and yet here you are and you've learned that resilience. That's one of the things that Tower Moments gives us. It gives us the resilience that we need to move forward and face the challenges that inevitably come up in life with greater grace and grit to carry us through. And magic can help us with that. But I think one of the fallacies that I think sometimes people can fall for is like, well, I can use magic to just get me out of this situation and not have to deal with it. And sometimes that's not the solution. It may be on occasion, but sometimes the solution is I work the magic I can work to help me get through this in a way that helps me find the opportunities, and it may take some time. Noctua asked, "Does one thank Saturn for the loss slash limitation?" Well, I mean, I definitely did my own thank you ritual workings with Saturn, and I will say this: I also worked with Saturn very carefully. There were periods of time where I worked with Saturn, and there were other periods of time where I didn't. It wasn't like a one long magical working with Saturn. It was, I'm going to work with Saturn in the moment because it felt appropriate to look at the limitations and the boundaries here. And I will say, as far as thanking for the loss, like at the moment, you won't feel thankful for the loss. Like I wasn't thankful for getting divorced. I wasn't thankful for the experiences that were happening at that time. But in retrospect, now I'm a lot happier than I was in that marriage. I'm much better off in a lot of ways, in all the ways that really count. And my life is much richer and much, much, much happier now. I mean, I've got community, I've got connection, I've got two amazing people that I love very, very much in my life. And even though we're not living together at this time, those people still bring me a lot of joy and happiness. And I've got a lot of other really good things. And someday all that may blow up too again, you know? I I would say that death is our ultimate tower moment because that's the moment where it's like, okay, you're gone. But there we go. Sheena says, magic also follows the path of least resistance and through available channels. Sometimes those channels are small, mundane, or ordinary, but it creates a little more breathing room, opening up more and compounds. Yes, absolutely. Great point, Sheena. Yeah, the path of least resistance. This is one of the principles of magic that I talk about a lot. It's really about creating that path of least resistance to make things move along. Getting back to my story here, I did the Saturn working, and then I shut it down for a bit. Thought about everything that I had experienced, and it was a very interesting experience. It was like letting me see all the possibilities, and it helped me to kind of take a look at the long term picture and say, well, where do I want to go? And then I had someone come into my life. They had invited me to come down and visit them in Eugene. I had talked to them a few times. I drove down. One thing led to another, and suddenly I was like, oh, I want to go down there. And I did the Saturn magic working again. And that time, because I knew where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, things came together very quickly. I was able to get an apartment in a saturated market where it was really hard to find an apartment. I got an apartment within less than a month working Saturn magic. And I was able to get a job that was going to provide me the enough stability so that I could, move down there and have enough income to afford that apartment. I moved down there and that was the start of my new life. There were other tower moments that happened after, but I'm not going to get into those. I just wanted to share that as an example though. And Saturn magic isn't the only magic that I would necessarily work for a tower moment. I'm going to talk about a couple of other forms of magic, but I do see a comment from Joe, so I want to respond to that first. Joe says, it's been a rough 20 years, but there have been unreal growth experiences that may not have happened otherwise. Perhaps the old saying, be careful what you ask for, is more true than we could ever know without the tower getting involved in our Eight of Pentacles daily grind. That's a really interesting point, Joe. I think that, you're making a really good point there because yeah, there are some very unreal growth experiences that can occur. You know, I, what I find is that the tower strips away what is not working in our lives. In the moment, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm losing these things. Like it was like for me, it was like I lost my house. I've lost this marriage. I've lost I've lost my stability so that I could continue growing my business. Yeah, I lost all those things, and some of that was self inflicted through some of my own choices. In all honesty and candor, and that's okay. Like I can totally take responsibility for that, and I do. But the tower also strips away what we do not want or do not need in the moment. It strips away the illusions, the things that we've been clinging to that would be that Eight of Pentacles daily grind that kind of gets us to the place where we're just not seeing all the opportunities. I think in a way, like the way that I kind of look at the tower is that the tower becomes this kind of becomes like a wall. Like it's like the walls that it's like, oh, this room's comfortable, but I can't see out the window. I can't see all the opportunities. There's just this narrow little window, and I can only see certain things. And then boom, the lightning comes down, the tower falls apart, and we're back right here, and we're falling out of the tower. We're falling out of the tower. And what we're seeing is all the opportunities. And so we have a choice then. When we land in the rubble, take a moment and just be in the rubble. Just breathe. Let yourself just kind of take a moment and breathe. And then you have a decision. Do I rebuild the tower or do I pick myself up and move out of the rubble and find a new path? Both choices are equally valid, and there's some interesting consequences with that. And let's see. Welcome, Michael. Glad to have you here. Noctua says it's hard when Tower Time reveals bad actors. It is. And sometimes the bad actor it reveals is yourself. Sometimes it's other people. Sometimes it's a combination. I mean, the tower really, in the moment, is going to definitely cause you to face, kind of like the experiential catalytic awareness of like, oh, here I am. Here's my faults. Here's my fallibilities. Here's the things. Like, I can look back on the tower moments that I've had and definitely see where like I fell short. It wasn't just the other person, you know? The and sometimes where I fell short is that maybe it was that I bought into this illusion, or maybe it was that I was secretly undermining the relationship, or maybe it was something else. Like, welcome to being human. I think there's a song that I really like by Billy Joel. It's called Second Wind, and he talks about like, hey, you're only human. You're gonna make your mistakes. You'll get a second wind. I think that embodies tower time right there. Michael Forrest said, "The tower will be my next post tonight at midnight." Okay, cool. Well, I'll look forward to seeing that. And I don't know if, Michael, I'll just let you know we're coming out with a book called Tower Time on Tuesday. I posted links up above in the chat earlier, which is all about working with the tower as a catalytical force. Um, yeah. So, you know, you have these two choices. I'm going to wrap up here soon, but thank you all for staying here for as long as you are. And again, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop those in. You have these choices. You can rebuild the tower. And there's potential there. Like rebuilding the tower could be like, okay, I'm going to go back to I left this job or I lost this job. I'm going to go back to a similar job because I know that. Okay, you can go back to it. What I would say about the tower is that the tower is the comfortable discomfort. Like it's that daily grind. Like, okay, I know this. And I might not be thrilled about it, but hey, it's something it's familiar. The problem with rebuilding the tower is that while you may in the moment be able to rebuild it, at some point it'll probably fall again because you're basically putting yourself back into the cage that you were in before. So it's like you've opened the cage door, you put yourself back in, closed it, and you're like, I'm trapped. But who trapped you? But sometimes rebuilding the tower is the right choice to make in the moment. Sometimes it's not. That's your discernment there. I would say more often than not, you never exactly rebuild the tower the way it was before. You may end up building a similar tower, but there's going to be some changes. And maybe part of it is I learned certain things from this and I can rebuild with a different and the view from the tower window is going to be a bit better as a result. Okay, great. What I would encourage people to do though is to walk forward from the rubble. Yes, you're leaving the tower behind and you're about to go on a journey. And that journey is going to lead you to your star, which coincidentally is the next trump, right? After the tower is the star. There's a reason the star is there. The star is our true north. At least in the northern hemisphere, we talk about the North Star. If you're from the southern hemisphere, you don't have a North Star, but hopefully you get the point. You have a direction to go in, you have a way to go. You can walk forward into a new world and a new opportunity. Michael, I'm going to share in the chat here a link to the book because we're doing a pre-order special. If you pre-order the book, you get a free class from us as a thank you. This special is lasting until Monday at midnight. The book comes out on Tuesday. And of course, you can get it from Amazon and other places as well. So keep that in mind. But if you're interested, pick it up. So you can walk forward from the rubble. And at some point, you're still going to end up building towers again. There's, but you're building a different tower because your tower is like, oh, okay, I've chosen to follow my true star north. I mean, I would say for me, like I look at my life and like after that divorce, what ended up happening? I went and I built a new tower of sorts. My life in Eugene right now, but it's a good tower to be in for the moment. And someday that tower is going to come down. Things will change. But like right now, I've got a community here. I've got some wonderful people in my life. I'm working on my black belt. I've got a job. I'm building my businesses. I'm doing all the things that I need to be doing. And it's a really stable time in my life. And I'm grateful for that. I have got that daily Eight of Pentacles grind going on right now. And that's a good thing. Sometimes that's what we need. And so at some point down the line, something will change. And when it does, I'll have the emotional resilience and the capacity and the skills to help me get through that time. Just like Heather shared earlier in her story. Yeah, Michael, do let us know the link for your article when it comes out. Drop a comment in the episode that are on this episode here, which will be out today in a little bit. That'd be great. Thank you. That's a good idea. Thank you, Sheena, for putting that in there. So, in conclusion, unless any of you have any comments, and again, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop those in. Joe said, I tell people the star is pouring out the elixirs of life, a possible time of needed repair and reintegration. Right, which is perfect right after the tower. Because it is reintegration. Like we are reintegrating our lives in the wake of the fall. Noctu asked, does the book contain specifics of Saturnian magic? Yes, I did include some specifics of Saturnian magic in there. Because I thought it'd be a good idea. So some of those are included. We've included some other like some somatic practices. We've included some other practical magical workings. It's a pretty beefy book too. It's not like a door stopper, but it's over 200 pages. I was just thinking about it like the paperback. I go, okay, yeah. So I'm really proud of it. It's good to have a new book coming out. It's been a year. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap things up here, unless there are any other comments. And And Sheena said there is a bit, and we can do a full alchemy lab as well. Yes, we can do a full alchemy lab. Maybe that'll be. Let's make that the alchemy lab for July, Sheena. I think that would be a good one. We can do Saturnian magic. It would actually be appropriate because it was in July of 2021 that I did my Saturnian magic. Okay, I'll do a quick little story here too. Um, Around the time that I was getting ready to leave Portland for Eugene, the movie The Green Knight came out, and I went and I watched it in the theater. And while I was watching it in the theater, I had this very Saturnian experience. I mean, that movie, if you've watched it, um, it's a really fascinating film. It's slow, but it's really good. It's a really fascinating retelling of the Green Knight story and mythos. If you're not familiar, um, look it up. It's a really good story. But there was a moment there toward the end where I had this very powerful Saturnian moment where I just imagined the scythe coming through, chopping off my head and everything coming out. And it was like I was leaving everything behind that didn't work and then reintegrating everything that came back in. But it was also a really powerful example of like, I'm working with this very powerful force, and there are many different layers and faces and aspects to it. And fully receiving all of that in the moment. All right, so I want to thank all of you for being on here today. Thank you for the comments. This was a lively, wonderful live on Substack. I love it. And yeah, the book is coming out on Tuesday. We're super excited about it. We're going to be doing some more fun events after the launch is released. And we just thank you so much for being part of our magical experiments community. Take care and have a wonderful rest of your day.